Hi guys, we're going to do dry point etching right now, and I'm going to show you how to do it if you haven't already done it. I realize that I'm a little bit late with this. I hope everybody got their box. It's a fun box, even if I do say so myself. I have hopefully plenty of paper for you and plenty of tools to work with. One of the things that, you need to have on your own would be a spoon or something to rub the plates with. And then what I made the little templates out of was this clear lay, and it's just acetate. You can find anything that would be a heavier plastic that kind of helps keep it, looking good all the way around. So that's a good thing. The cloth that is in there is a wiping cloth, and it's from Akua products, and I'm not selling any of this. I just thought maybe you guys would like to know what these are in case you wanted to, you get really excited and you want to do the dry point or the monotype later on. So this is, basically it. It's not a whole lot of stuff, so I'll show you what we're going to do with it in a second. All right, so in your nifty little box here, we ended up with the box. You have your dry point sheet, the one that has the template on here. And on the template, it's written dry point, and this is where the paper goes on the blue, and this is where the dry point plate goes in the middle, and then I ask you to flip that over. And the reason why I do that is the fact that sometimes the Sharpie, for some reason, I don't know if it's the pressure or, the ink, but anyway, it comes back up on your paper, and you really don't want that. So right now, what I'm going to do is flip it over, and I'm going to use my box to do the print on, just because as silly me, I put all the labels on this side, and when I got to the post office, I was like, oh, look, there's a place for the label. I thought it was pretty small in there, but this is a good printing part. So I think maybe you can use your box as your your printing press area. So that's what I'm going to do. One reason is because I can put a tack in it, and it's not like sticking in the table, and it looks pretty good. So anyway, so I'm going to take my little template here, and I'm going to place it on my box. And that way I can use all my nice little tapes and things like that. Interestingly enough, having taught, kindergarten through college for years and years and years, one of the things I found are the little tape rolls, that they are so nice for kids to draw circles around. And, they come in abundance. After a year, you've gone through quite a bit of tape. So it's one of those things that I think I just happen to have. So I could roll that tape back on there for you. All right, back to the box. After I tape this down, I really want it to stay because I don't want this moving. Make sure your box doesn't move as well, just because I have something heavier inside my box. You can just, flip everything else if you want to, but basically that's, it's just good if it's not moving all over the place when you start using it. Now, if you were taking your stylus and you were scratching into your plate, and you don't want to, you got to get in there and get a good line, but you can't do it like this because there's not a whole lot of I don't know, a control, I guess, when you're drawing like that. So you really, if you're going to do this, do it a little bit at a time. I scrape my line, then I go back in, and I scrape it again if I want it really, really dark. And remember I said it's hatch, cross hatch, so you want to get some shading and some different values with your lines, and that's really, really important. So, you can do it light and soft. Now, if you really did have a problem and you just went, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I messed that up. Well, the first thing you can do is just flip over and start again. Or you can try to get a X-Acto knife maybe, or a razor blade, scrape off the surface, and then use, something that's fairly, hard and that you can rub into it. If we were doing this in our class, what we'd use it's called a scraper. And the scraper basically just it's sort of a blade on its side, and it would scrape off the surface. It's sort of a curved blade. And and then you sort of scrape off your line. You're digging down a little bit deeper with a gentle scrape. Then you're going to take something called a burnisher. And the burnisher will just rub that, and you put pressure on that as well. So it makes the metal, or in this case, the plexi plate, sort of push back down into its lovely, wet, shiny space again. So those are good. So if you don't have, I know you don't have those, but if you could use a X-Acto knife and possibly a spoon or something, that would really be something you can push down on. I think you can get your problem solved like that. All right. The other thing is, when you're getting ready to do your print, you want to make sure that you have your the little small container with the blue tape on it. That is your etching ink. The other one is for your monotypes, and it's a little bit more viscous. It's a little bit more, has more movement on the paper, so it's slimier. I guess that's what viscous is. So what you're going to do when you're working on your plate and you're not quite sure what you have done is dark or deep, one thing you can do is take a little bit of the ink and just rub it into there. You don't need much. I'll do the whole plate on that one. And then just kind of gently wipe it off. And that will give you an idea that how deep or dark those little grooves are, and how deep or dark they're going to print. All right? So that way you can kind of see it. Don't let them dry in there too much, because it might block up your spaces, especially if we were using oil-based ink. Yeah, definitely you wouldn't want to leave it in there, because you'd never get the stuff out. So with the water-soluble ink, which is what you have, we can pretty much soak them, or whatever you need to do to get the ink out, so it's not that big of a thing. But anyway, just want to let you know. All right, so that's something you can do as well. All right. Now, when you got your ink, it might be that you have a little white powder in there. The white powder in here is the whiting, and that is a product that is natural. It's little bitty diatoms and stuff from the ocean that creates talc. And talc is talcum powder, baby powder. So yours is here. I put some in here so it would thicken it up a little bit, because you do want your ink to be kind of thick, so it'll go into those grooves and stay in there when you're wiping it off. If you're just wiping off and it has a lot of water in it, it won't stay in there very long. All right. So if you haven't done that, take one of your little sticks and just sort of stir it up a little bit. Don't get it all over the place, but keep it kind of in a blob. The better you keep it in a blob, the less it's going to get all dried up. So that's an important part on there. Okay. Now the next step is to take your plate, and you are going to take some of your ink. Well, but let me tell you before this, when you get ready to print, make sure that you've taken your paper and you've gotten it wet. Now, I told you probably before that you can soak this paper forever and it would be okay. I think with the water-soluble inks, we don't need to soak it quite as long. So let's just you could do 5 or 10 minutes. Just get it wet, put it in something, let it sort of absorb the water, but it's not dripping and it's not shiny in any way. So, and then cover it up while you're getting ready, because you don't want it to re-dry and then you have to re-wet it. So make sure that that is the case for that. All right, so you get your plate, and I like to write, and I know it's kind of silly, but I write the word back on the back of it, just because sometimes when I'm, doing this and I'm in a hurry or something, I'm just not even thinking, I'll ink up the back because it looks like it's got an image there. And so then I'm going, I gotta clean that back off again. So make sure, that's why I wrote on your dry point plate as well, just so you know what the back is. If you read your words wrong, you know that it's not the right way. So anyways, I mean, it is the right way if you read your words wrong, but if you can read them right, then that's no good. All right. So the first step on this is to take your plate, and we're going to put a little bit of ink, and I'm just going to put it here and there. Okay, I got a nice little blob on here. Next, I'm going to take one of my little squeegees, and I am going to take that ink and push it around the plate. And when I do that, I'm not scraping it off and on like a rhythm. It's more of a, just a higgly-piggly all over the place, kind of a massage of the ink in there. All right, so the next thing I want to do is sort of scrape off as much as I can. It's not a lot. I want to leave a good bit in there, but I'm going to scrape some of the residue off just because I know what I'm doing. Now, if I have my whole plate, I didn't put any out here just because I don't have any designs out there. So what I do have right now are just some ink. So I scraped a little bit off, and I still have some on my plate. That's like that. You can kind of see through it. The next thing you're going to do is take this is a substitute for cheesecloth, and what this will do is rub the ink into the grooves very, very gently. Right now we've just put it on, it's scraped. Now, I gave you a piece of this, and the way you use this is you'll need to roll it up on itself. So you need to put your edges in. Move this over. Put your part back in, and what you need to do is kind of like give all your volume back here, but this right here needs to be nice and smooth like that. You don't want any folds in it because that catches ink and then it leaves weird things on your plate. If your hands are too big, or personally I think this is just a little bit too small too, but y'all got a bigger piece than I did. But you guys rate. What I'm gonna do is just ball up a piece of paper and put it in there to help with my volume. And that way I know that I have something a little bit more to handle, to hold on to. All right. So, and it's okay if your cloth is dirty because of the fact that it's good to be dirty sometimes. All right. All right. This is nice and smooth. The ink's dried on here, and you can wash this out and use it again and again if you want to. Now, what I've done is I'm going to take this and I'm going to make small little circles on my plate. I'm not going swoosh back and forth and back and forth. The reason I'm making the circles is it gets into the surface of the grooves and it doesn't pull it out. I guess it's because it sort of massages it in. If I were just back and forth, there'd be parts that were taken out and parts that would have more. And we don't want that. So what we're going to do, we just go round and round and round and round. You're going to wax on and wax off. Okay. And now I have some residue on my plate. And I'm being real gentle with this. I'm trying not to get it out of the grooves. You don't want it jumping out. All right. So I've used my plate to get that. All right. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to wipe it off. And I could probably do this not on my box because that's where I'm going to print. But I'm going to wipe it off with a piece of paper. Now, you can do your paper like that, like a little piece of sandpaper. I like to do this kind of thing where I take it and I fold it in half. And then I just push it down on the table and you end up with a sort of a little something with a handle that I can go around and around with like that. And that's what I want to do. I also put some whiting on my plate, but I don't put it directly on the plate when I do this. All I'm doing is I'm going to put a little bit out here on the table. Uh-oh, drop something on my plate. And I'm going to get it on my piece of paper here. And then I'm going to go round and round and round on my plate, just sort of very gently picking up some of that ink that's on there, and actually on the surface, it's not digging into the grooves much. It's just staying on the surface, and it's leaving the ink in the grooves. So here we go. And the reason I put the whiting there, it acts as a real nice little abrasive. So you don't want much. Now you might experiment with it and see what you like to do with it. If you have someplace that you need a lot of highlight on it, go ahead and you can just experiment with all that. Now, and if you want to, you can experiment with your drawing paper. You don't have to have the really good stuff to do the drawing with. I mean, the proof prints or any of these, just to play around with. You see how nice and clean that is now? All right. And I have that on there. If you want to, you can always reuse these and just fold them inside out and then reuse it again and make sure you got it like that. Okay? So now I'm going to make sure my edges, and when I say I'd like to see clean edges on your plates, I beveled all your plates. I made sure that they were beveled, and so actually when you get back to school in the fall, you can bring it in and maybe we can make a print from it off the press and you can see the difference. In that, it's not a whole lot of difference. I was actually surprised and very pleased at this, doing it with the water-soluble inks. So I've never done that before. Okay? So anyway, all right, I'll take my plate now and I'll put it on my little place here that has the place for my plate. The next thing I'm going to do is take one of my wet pieces of paper, and I'll move this here. And when I get this paper, just get a towel, not a beach towel or any big fluffy towel, probably the skinnier the better. And you're going to just very gently, you don't want water shining on these. You can see it's a little bit wet because it's got the water shining. Hopefully you can see that. Cover that back up. So what I'm going to do is blot the paper very gently. I'm not going to just press everything out because certainly everything's soaked into here. And so I'm just blotting the paper, making sure that it's not any shiny water on there or anything that I need to worry about. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to take that off for a second. I'm going to place this in my paper area that I've designated as paper. And then you can use the tape to tape that down if you want to, but I'm also sort of safeguarding myself and making sure that everything's nice and neat. And I'm going to just put a tack in there, and that's the beauty of using this little box is the fact that I have that tack area. All right, now to rub your plate, you need to use a spoon. I thought about throwing this in, and I thought, nah, that thing will break just right away. So you may want to use a spoon from your home, or like I said, these are just the best in the world. I got them at the dollar store. You get like 6 of them for $2 or something. So it's really not that much. All right, I'm going to put my plate in here. Make sure it's on there. And then I'll just let my paper go down. I'm going to hold this paper the whole time that I'm working with it. So what I'm going to do right now is I was getting ready to rub the back of the paper. It's better if you don't rub the back of the paper because the paper is wet and it will like catch on the whatever this is, the fibers or whatever, and it will rip the paper easily. It's not very good. So if you'll get a piece of tracing paper or parchment or wax paper, even copier paper is fine. Copier paper will absorb a little bit more water than the others, but anyway, it's fine. Now, I'm trying to rub this. I probably should be going round and round and round like I just told you. So, let's see. And I don't want my paper underneath to move, so make sure you've held on to it. I like to get my little dry point plate edges on there to show that it's a plate, and that's one of the ways that, you know, those characteristics of an etching is the plate mark. It's used under pressure, so that's one thing we'll do. All right, so we'll see how this one went. All right, now I'll put this down, take this off, and peek up under here, and yes, I have a nice little etching. I don't know why it's so dirty. I need to clean that off again, don't I? There we go. All right, so I have a nice etching with this. So that's how that turned out. Now, if I were looking at this, I'd go, well, I might need to clean my plate off a little bit more. Not sure what all the residue was. If you'll look, this is one that I did, yesterday, and it turned out really nice because it just seemed to have more. This one has a lot more detail, but this one I must have left a little more ink on there. I printed it twice. I didn't mean to. It popped up, and then, but it was a good print nonetheless. Here's another one, an example of too wet of paper. Remember, when you're pressing down on this, you're dragging that liquid with you, so, or pushing it into the groove. So you want to make sure that you don't have too wet of a paper, but it's got to be sort of wet. So just, you know, like I said, just get it wet. Make sure the whole thing gets wet too, because sometimes they have like little places that don't take the water for some reason. So you need to get that done and then print with these. Otherwise, these lines are really nice in here. Sometimes you have too much plate residue. I have a little bit here. You can sort of see some around here on this edge. But the plate residue is, you can look at it two ways. One, it might be a good thing because of the fact that you kind of like that darker ambiance that's in there, using that tonal value for your image. And the other one is, oh dear, what have I done? It's too dark. Usually that means if you have too much of the plate residue on there, you didn't get the outside of that cleaned very well. So again, with your little pieces of paper or with your whiting somehow, that's why I gave you the Q-tip. You can use the whiting with the Q-tip, although these are so delicate. All of your lines are going to be so delicate. Usually that you don't want to put the whiting too much on there because it just like, wow, you know, it just overpowers it and makes it super blocked. So to dry these, what you want to do is you're going to take these and put them between leaves of not tracing paper, you know, newsprint, anything that is paper that is not, doesn't have a print to it, because again, the wet comes off. So the idea is to put something heavy on it and let them sit for a day or two and just get flat, and you'll have a really nice print. You'll still see the plate mark on there, but you'll have that. Also, all these little smudges here, I can take an eraser, a really nice, you know, like a white eraser or something, and erase those lines, but your paper needs to be really nice and dry when you do that. Etching ink, printmaking ink is all made to sit on the surface of the paper. If we were doing water color or something like that, it's made to suck into the paper more, but this is easier to clean when you're doing that. So you can use a white, you know, an eraser or something to get your lines on there. So let's see, if your plate is really, really light, like this one's a little lighter than I want it to be, like this one was just like spot on, it could be that either number one, I took too much ink out of it, or number two, I didn't put enough ink on it to begin with, or number three, it could be you haven't done your lines deep enough to you know, hold the ink that is supposed to be printed on there. So those are things you might want to consider looking at every time you do it. So if you get to a second print and you say, hey, everything's so light, what do I do? It's probably go back in and just do some little, try to re-scratch some of those places. Now, the more prints you make from this, the less your image is going to show up, because of the fact that each time you're doing this, you're rubbing and you're pressing that down. And remember, I told you it's the little furrow that comes up, that little hook that comes out of the act of digging your plate out. It's kind of a burr, and that gets worn down after a while. It just says, no, I can't do it, because this is a very, very soft material to work with. So it's not like zinc or copper or anything like that. So you want to make sure that that might be a problem. If you're finished with this, you can always do something on the back. I am more than happy to send you more paper if you would like more paper. This is domestic etching paper. It's a nice quality and not too thick for these types of projects that we're doing here. And if we were doing etching, I probably would have given you a little more variety of things. One of the things that you would have used for etching to scratch your plates out was an etching needle. So you have your burnisher. Burnisher is right here. Your scraper is the sharp one, and then you have your Whistler's needle. Whistler's needle, it's just an etching needle. They call it etching needle, but this particular type is twisted like that. And apparently, James Whistler of what was this, Whistler's Mother's Thing and Nocturne series. He had his own. He was a very prolific etcher, and so he had somebody make these for him because they worked easily. They held easily in your hand because of that groove, and he was able to hang on to it a little bit better. So all the needles, when they're twisted like this, they're called Whistler's needles. And it's funny that little things like that happen, and you got a die, and years later somebody picks it up and says, "Oh, these are named after him," and he didn't get to appreciate that fame. One of the things that I wanted to show you when you do proof prints is I did this etching, and when I did this etching, I had to make proof prints every time I wanted to change something. So these are the amount of proof pieces that I did. Every now and then I'd have to, everything I did, put it in the acid for 3 minutes, clean it off, and then I'd have to make another proof print. This is the residue I'm talking about. Sometimes you get that plate sort of darkening smudge on there. Oh well, came and went. Oh, here it goes. So, you might, sometimes you can leave it and it looks good. Sometimes you just want to get it out of there and make it look nice. So on these, I've actually, this is just the way I wiped it. I got the tonal values on here, so you can kind of see how dark. You got to get your really nice darks, and that always makes it pop out. But it's just hard to go that dark with a piece of artwork. But you got to just kind of bite the bullet and see what you want to do with that. Another one that I did, I have a dry point etching here, and it is embossed. I'm hoping that you can see the embossed areas here. So this little guy, all the little trees up here are made by the dry point etching. It's a piece of plexiglass that I cut, and the top of it was just cut square. Then the bottom of it I cut out these little dips in here and all this sort of a way to create that land effect on there. And then I have another piece of plexiglass that I did not ink up, but I actually part of it was just plexiglass at the beginning, and then the end was just a piece of mat board actually that I covered with some Mod Podge, and that created this. It's called blind embossing that's on there, and that's one of your words that you would need to know for your test if we're having to test. But anyway, and then I hand colored this with watercolor in the back. So see, there's so many different things you can do with this. Now you can't hand color. You could do it with pencil, possibly. I mean, color pencil, things like that. Because these are oil-based inks, that was easy to do. Although I think if you were to do it with acrylic, and you can get some retardant, and that keeps your acrylic from drying really, really fast. So you could actually, on your dry point etchings, you could put acrylic paint with a little bit of retardant in there, and go ahead and do that, and you could make a print, and then you could do the watercolor or any kind of water media that you wanted to. So there are all these possibilities on ways to create with dry point, and it's just a nice medium. So it's easy. It's something you can do at home. It's something that I would love for y'all to pick up on. All right. Now, I guess the last thing is, let me know if you need anything or not sure about the process. It's easy. It's just that you have to kind of like hold your mouth right. You've got to have your paper wet and a little dry, and then you have to have your plate. You put the ink on. Oh, the other thing is, if I'm going to make a second one of these, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just go through the whole process again. And I don't have to clean my plate off. I'll just go round and round and round. So I'm inking up my plate. Now I'm going to be careful about using the paper on here. I will take it, fold it, and then push it down, and that creates a nice little piece for me to hold on to and to clean my plate. I'll use the whiting very sparingly on here. And notice I put it down here and not directly on my plate. Usually if you get it on your plate, sometimes it's kind of like you can't really control it very well. This is doing what I want it to do just because I know that's where it goes. So, and then go round and round and round with your cleanup here. There actually is something called a hand wipe if we were doing the big etchings, and you can certainly do it here if you have a small plate as well. And what that is basically I would take my hand and just wipe it like that. I'd get a little bit of whiting on there and just do a big wipe across there. And that kind of cleans your surface up too if you're careful about not too much whiting and so on. You can also, if you look at your plate in the light, you can kind of see where the ink residue still is. And so you can maybe polish it off that way, or say if I wanted the inside of the wings here a little more transparent, I would make sure that I had cleaned those out, or if I want to make sure that my background is nice and clean, I'll clean those out. So, and then of course do your edges down here. You can do that with your rag and make sure that that's nice and clean. Woo, throwing it around. So let's see. Then all I do is just take my paper again. Get that nice and clean this time. Set it down here on my template. I'll take my paper piece and blot it dry. Make sure it's not too wet. Probably it'd be a better idea to put your paper on while your plate's not under there, but you know, I forget. After all these years, I still forget. All right, and then remember to put something over your plate. Make sure it doesn't have ink on it like that one did. This is a piece of just newsprint. And then rub your plate. Make sure you hang on to it so it's not moving all over the place down there. As much as your paper is secured, the plate might move around. On the inks, make sure you keep them. They'll dry pretty fast. I'm not sure if you can reconstitute them or not, but they're probably better if you just make sure if you're going to leave your etching ink a little bit longer, then you might want to just put one drop of water in there, not very much, just to make sure that it has something that's going to create that nice water soluble ink, having something to drink there. Okay, so now I'm going to take it up and I'm going to pull it off, and there we go. This one has all that little detail in there, and that's really, really nice on that. So that's what we have. So there you go. Any questions? Just let me know. All right. Thank you.